transportation system, one of the largest investments in transportation and infrastructure in American history, certainly the largest since the investment in the interstate highway, and we're creating millions of good-paying jobs. Democrats deliver, and this House, despite the skeptics, passed the Build Back Better Act, where we are going to create additional jobs, millions of them over the years. Cut taxes for working families, middle-class families, and low-income families, and lower child care costs, health care costs, the high cost of life-saving prescription drugs, higher education costs, and do something decisive to deal with the climate crisis. Democrats deliver. Republicans are having a complete and total meltdown. Liar, clown, trash, grifter, nuts. What happened to the kindler and gentler Republican Party? It doesn't exist. They're having a complete and total meltdown. Instead of focusing on the problems of the American people, they are attacking each other. It's not a three-ring circus, it's a four-ring malignant circus. And the so-called leader has no control over what's happening. And the American people are hurt as a result. But Democrats are going to continue to deliver on behalf of the American people. It would be nice if we had a functional party on the other side of the aisle that could focus on the economy, on inflation, on the problems of the American people, but instead they're focused on attacking each other and trying to prove loyalty to the cult. Shame on them. It's a disgrace over there. But Democrats are going to continue to deliver for the people. Let me yield to our distinguished Vice Chair, Pete Aguilar.
Chairman's on a roll, and I don't want to interrupt the word salad of Republican conference Scrabble that we play. As we mentioned last time, the last time we were here, we talked about Democrats delivering the Build Back Better agenda. We did that. We passed our bills. We continued to support the creation of jobs, supporting middle-class families with tax cuts, lowering health costs, and addressing climate change. That's what we're going to continue to be focused on, is legislating and delivering for the American public. We look forward to our steps this month to deliver on that promise, to continue that. We look forward to the Senate doing their work and sending us back something that will make Americans' lives better. With that, the Chairman will answer all your tough questions.
First question.
Yes, so I know that you haven't yet committed on Representative Boebert to a specific measure. Congressman Bowman has called for Boebert to lose both of her committee assignments, so I'm wondering what message you think that sends to some of your members if the Democratic caucus, given that the Republican caucus likely isn't going to act on this, doesn't take strong enough measures against Boebert.
Let's focus on the second part of your question. Why isn't the Republican conference going to act on this? What more does Kevin McCarthy need to see? I mean, what more does this guy really need to see? He's got Marjorie Taylor Greene completely out of control, Gosar out of control, Lauren Boebert out of control, Crossfire. He's trying to mediate the dispute, can't do anything, and we think this guy in this conference is going to solve problems on behalf of the American people. They can't. So, as Pete indicated, we're going to continue to focus on dealing with the challenges facing the American people. We're going to focus on crushing the virus, focus on creating an economy that works for everyday Americans, and making sure that we allow for opportunity in every single zip code by building back better. Now, as it relates to consequences for Lauren Boebert, certainly, I think there are active discussions underway to make sure that Lauren Boebert is held accountable, particularly given the likelihood that we may not see any accountability coming from the four-ring malignant circus on the other side of the aisle. But hope springs eternal, and we'll see what emerges over the next day or two. At the same time, we're continuing to have discussions, leadership, House Democratic Caucus, to make sure that we support our colleague. Because clearly, this type of dangerous rhetoric is endangering Ilhan Omar. And it endangers other members of this Congress. And words matter. We saw the consequences of dangerous rhetoric on January 6th.
Can you say more about which options are on the table?
I'm not going to get out ahead of any discussions that we're having in terms of leadership and the caucus.
I actually wanted to ask you about threats against members based on the voicemail that Representative Omar played last night. Can you talk about how your members are feeling about the security here at the Capitol, their security at home, the level of threats they're getting? How much of that is drawn from this kind of rhetoric from January 6th, et cetera?
Well, I've said a lot on this issue. These discussions are ongoing, and of course, our chairwoman of the House Administration Committee, of which Pete sits on, so maybe I'll yield to Pete, and he's obviously also on the January 6th commission, but these are active conversations that are underway. Notwithstanding that, the House Democratic Caucus's commitment to delivering for the American people remains steadfast. We are in the midst right now of doing at least 1,000 infrastructure events across the country by the end of the year. To make it clear, what has been done with tremendous leadership from President Biden. We've had infrastructure week after infrastructure week after infrastructure week forever in this town. Never yielded anything. And now we've got a new era of robust infrastructure in America. And notwithstanding whatever the threat environment may be, and certainly it's exacerbated by the reckless Republican radical rhetoric on the other side of the aisle, we are going to continue to do our jobs and communicate with the American people on infrastructure and on building back better.
In order to address the work that is so important to the American public, members have to feel safe doing their jobs. And I think that's kind of the root of your question. And I don't think the American public focuses a lot on this. And it's something that the chairman and I care a lot about, is the fact that some members continue to feel threatened, both here by their colleagues or by folks sending, emails and text messages. It's sad. It's an unfortunate part of what we have to deal with at times. We need to make sure, and Chair Lofgren, focuses on this, that members, feel safe, and we have every tool available to us to think through security protocols, to work with our staffs and our district offices as well. I'm pleased that Democratic leadership and Chair Lofgren, have made those resources, available, and continue to keep an eye out for that. So that's going to be a focus, is making sure members on both sides of the aisle are safe doing their jobs. Unfortunately, it feels that some of our colleagues on the other side, don't share that focus and are doing things that actively promote those threat levels, increasing.
Do you, if I may just real quick, do you hear from members currently that are concerned about their safety either in the building or at home?
I think I speak for the chairman that we hear from members on a range of topics each and every day, and this is one of them. This is something that we continue to have discussions about, and are focused on our members, making sure that they can do their jobs both in their district and here in D.C.
I actually have a question for you, Congressman, if I can, a January 6th question, not no disrespect. You guys had a little bit of a breakthrough yesterday with Mark Meadows agreeing to testify in some capacity. What do you think he can tell you that nobody else can?
I think it's important that we tell the full and complete story about the events of January 5th and January 6th, everything that happened from the election until that point, the president's focus, the former president's focus on continuing to fan the flames of disinformation. And I think that his former chief of staff will give us a glimpse of that. But I think it's also important to focus not just on the substance of the conversations that those two had, but clearly he had a lot of interaction and conversations on the campaign side. And so I think we're going to have a lot of discussions on his efforts, both working outside of the building as well as the official capacity that he held. So I think that there's a lot of questioning there that can be done, and we look forward to his cooperation, and we'll assess what the next steps are after his discussion and deposition with us.
And on Jeffrey Clark, you guys are going to vote tonight to start the contempt process with him. He's not a household name. How important of a figure do you think he was behind the scenes during the lead up to January 6th?
Yeah, just the public reporting alone on the Senate Judiciary report, clearly shows that Jeffrey Clark was a key effort within the Department of Justice, using the brand of the Department of Justice to continue to stoke the fear and the misinformation campaign that the former president waged. And the fact that his two superiors have already spoken publicly to the Senate committee as well as to us, shows us that he shouldn't have anything to hide. But unfortunately, that's what he's afraid of. So we'll exercise the next steps, and we'll bring it to the full House floor after the Business Committee of this evening.
What's going on with the CR, and do Democrats have a date for how long they would like any short-term measure to last?
I'll let both, Steny Hoyer and the Speaker, as well as Chairwoman DeLauro, speak specifically to that issue, and then yield to Pete, who's on the appropriations. This brother's on a lot of important committees here. Yield to Pete on it. But I think we've done our job, and the Senate Democrats are prepared to do their job as well. The problem is Mitch McConnell, the sort of king of obstruction on the other side of the Capitol, playing games, not wanting to even negotiate a year-end spending agreement to provide for the needs of the American people. And apparently, some of the more extreme members of the Senate Republican group want to even shut down the government, probably because they think somehow creating chaos, which they're masters of, will hurt President Biden. It's not going to work. We're prepared to act. We need the Senate Republicans to step up and do their job.
I'm sorry, were you saying that McConnell's not negotiating on the omnibus or on the CR?
It's not clear to me. He's certainly not negotiating on the year-end spending agreement, otherwise known as the omnibus. But it's not even clear to me, but Chairwoman DeLauro may have more visibility into this, that he is meaningfully negotiating on reaching a reasonable continuing resolution. That remains to be seen. Go back to this side.
Republican Mike Lee has been quoted in Playbook as saying that he thinks that the Democrats should delay enforcement of the vaccine mandates for at least the length of the continuing resolution. And so are you saying you're not willing to do that?
Haven't seen, Senator Lee's comments, but I think we're in the middle of a public health crisis, and vaccine requirements are reasonable public health measures at this particular point in time. We are in a position now to be able to decisively deal with the implications of the Omicron variant because of the steps that have been taken by President Biden and his administration, who has led a serious effort to crush the virus, not suggesting that the American people intake Lysol or dismissing the virus as something that was going to disappear in a few days, or that there were 15 cases and we were going to go down to 0. That's where we were a little over a year ago. It wasn't a serious effort. It was dangerous what was coming out of the former White House. So I haven't seen Senator Lee's comments, but I've got full and complete confidence in what President Biden and the administration and Dr. Fauci have been doing and will continue to do to help the American people make it through the COVID-19 storm.
Let me just add to that, because unfortunately, Senator Lee isn't the only one here. There are folks on our side of the Capitol who have said similar things, and the fact that they want to walk right up to a government shutdown over a public health issue, it should frighten the American public. That's exactly what they are advocating here. And in the Senate, I don't speak Senate, but apparently they need, everybody to sign off on these things. And so whether it's 1 or whether it's 15, Republicans, unfortunately, that's going to impact government, that could impact government services come Friday evening. This is everything from military members' pay to projects underway to national parks. I mean, this isn't anything that anyone should root for. And the fact that this has become such a mainstay for the Republican Party is just frightening.
We'll come back over to this side in a minute. Yeah.
Thank you. A philosophical question. Why not? I'm Representative Bogart, understanding the real world danger of inflammatory rhetoric, personal attacks, understanding all of that. At the same time, she was elected by her district, and that's something in this body, you all have complete supervisions of your offices, of what you do with that vote. It's a powerful, important, sacred thing. How do you weigh that here? We've seen there were different, Gosar was specific, Marjorie Taylor Greene specific is another specific case. They're all different on perhaps a spectrum. How do you weigh taking action, taking away the power of the voters in her district versus what is the standard for when you do that?
Well, we needed to act as it related to the situation with Paul Gosar, and we needed to act as it related to the situation with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and we're going to need to make sure that Lauren Boebert is held accountable for her hatred, for her bigotry, for her Islamophobia, and for jeopardizing the health and safety and well-being of a fellow member of Congress. Those discussions are ongoing on the House side in terms of the Democratic Caucus, and I don't want to get out ahead of it because it would be inappropriate to do so.
Considering that, though, I mean, how do you weigh these things? Every member.
Well, I was a political science major, not a philosophy major, so I don't want to go down that road.
Can I ask you, Biden's poll numbers, they continue to be in the low 40s. He's especially not polling well with younger Democratic voters. Given the uphill climb that you guys already face, trying to hold on to the House next year, how much of that will be a drag on you if it stays where it is or gets worse?
I think this is a Pete Aguilar question, but I want Pete to address it because he's worked very.
Because she said younger Democrat.
This is like a comedy act going on today, but just yesterday in Georgia, off year, right? Not even a midterm, off year. Off election day, because it was a runoff. Democrats flipped 7 municipal seats across the state in the heart of Dixie. And guess what? That brings the total number of municipal seats flipped in Georgia this cycle to 48. So the notion that all is lost when we've got fresh evidence at this moment in Georgia that Democrats are not simply breaking even, but winning seats, yeah, it's a divided country. Virginia went one way, New Jersey went the other, and there's great news coming out of Georgia. Why? I think because Democrats are delivering. And that certainly has been apparent to the American people over the last several weeks with, one, the signing into law of the infrastructure agreement, 2, the House passage of the Build Back Better Act, 3, President Biden taking decisive action to deal with inflation and supply chain issues here in America as part of our effort to drive down the cost of living for the American people. And apparently some folks in Georgia took notice, and we flipped 7 seats, building upon the more than 40 seats that Georgia Democrats flipped in November. So there's a lot of data to be processed. Some may point in one direction to try to elevate a popular narrative amongst the radical right. There's a lot of other information that says that the American people are starting to pay attention to the delivery that is being executed upon by the American people, led by Democrats in the Congress, led by Joe Biden.
Yeah, I don't have anything more to add except to say that we're going to deliver the president's agenda, and we're going to deliver for the American public. That's our focus. There'll be plenty of time next calendar year to talk about politics. That's a long way away. And we're going to focus on doing our jobs. That's what members each and every day talk to us about, is delivering these improvements. We're going to do, as the chairman mentioned, 1,000 events among House members over the next 60 days, working with the Democratic Policy and Communications Group to highlight the focus of infrastructure and job creation back home in our districts, the importance of extending the child tax credit. All of these things are going to deliver for the American public. And when we can tell that story, when we can talk with them about what this means in their daily lives, we'll let the politics lie where they may. We're going to focus on doing the work to get there.
Last question. Go to somebody who hasn't asked yet. Thanks.
2 things if I can. One of the Boebert videos, if I can circle back to that, is from New York. And one of your fellow New York delegation members is in the background, who happens to be running for governor. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on what he should be saying in response to all of this. And then second, Tom Suozzi says that some people told him to stick around. Were you one of those people?
Well, I don't want to get into gubernatorial politics on either side of the aisle. Tom Suozzi is a great member, a great public servant, and I certainly wish him well moving forward. Thank you, everyone.